Our goal for this chapter is to get to know this very special node, the viewer node. Now, what the viewer node does is allows us to see attribute and field data from our network and allows us to see that in the viewport represented in colored data. Now, why is that so important? We're going to be getting to know that in the next few chapters. And the very first step is to do the viewer node creation. Now, we're going to be working with the point cloud in this chapter. So I'm going to go to move my instances over. Go ahead and control right click to disconnect that node. And we're going to go ahead and create the viewer node right here with the set position. Now, to create this node, what we do is control shift and then click. That's a Node Wrangler add-on hotkey. Now, at first, we just start to see something happening. But the first thing that we want to point out here is now this viewer node is now overriding the group output. What we see here is in the viewport, not what we see in the group output. Now, super special note, the viewer node is not meant to be the final output. The group output is supposed to be the final output. So now we can actually toggle this with the eye icon on the viewer node itself to be able to toggle this on and off. And basically when it's off, now the group node output, which doesn't have anything connected to it, is now going to show up in the viewport. Whenever we do have that on, the viewer node is going to be shown. Okay, so how do we work with this thing? Why is this important? Well, anything that's not geometry, we can plug into the bottom output, which is the value socket, right? So the top is always going to have geometry. That's going to be what we're actually looking at on. And the bottom one is going to be the value that we want to be represented in color form. And the way we display that is now by control shift clicking a field or a value. So now I'll control shift click on the noise texture, click on again to get the color value, and then click on add to be able to display that. And now we can see that noise pattern is now in the 3D viewport. Now this becomes really important because now we can actually see what we're doing a little bit better. For example, the scale value on the noise texture. This one's a little bit confusing, but if we did something like lower this down, you can actually start to see it in color form and you can see those frequencies a little bit. So if I go really small, you can see everything is now, the frequency is really big. And if we go larger on that, you can see the frequency gets smaller. So that's one example of this. I'm going to leave that back at the default value of 5. Now, step number 2 is get to know the problem areas. It's a little bit weird to work with. So why is this so weird? What do we have to look out for? Well, if we just do something like this, where if I control shift click the noise texture, and if I just plug in the vector output manually into the value, we can see it sort of works, but it's not really looking like it was before. So rule number 1, when you're working with the viewer node, instead of connecting things in here manually, always just do control shift click to make sure that's on there to avoid any bugs. So I'm going to disconnect that, control shift click, and then boom, now we can actually see the value. The second problem area is that this thing can get lost within our 3D view. So a habit of mine that I'm in is whenever I'm done with this, I just simply select it, hit X, and then I move on. And if I need to get back again, I'll just do another control shift click on it and then X to delete. So if I want to go to my volume, for example, control shift click, and then I can view that, X to delete. So I'm just constantly deleting it to avoid 1, it getting in the way, 2, I forget about it and wonder why my group output isn't actually working. And sometimes I find it just completely stops working in general and I have to delete it and recreate it anyway. So I'm going to reselect that to re-enable that and we'll continue working with this in the next chapter.